This is Star Lab Lesson 3, Myths Around the World, Constellations. During today's lesson, we're going to discover some of the myths and legends about the stars that were popular in ancient Greece more than 2,000 years ago. Long before television, video games, and books, people would spend hours outside at night looking up into the night sky. Using the brighter stars as guides, they imagined pictures of great heroes, wild beasts, and beautiful princesses. Often, they made up stories to go along with the pictures. And over the years, these stories were repeated from parents to children. Today, we call these stories myths, and they go hand in hand with the constellations we can see in the night sky. Many cultures made up myths to go with the constellations and the pictures that they saw in the night sky. A constellation is a group of stars that make up a picture in the night sky. The myths and legends that cultures told about the constellations helped people to remember important events, helped adults to teach stories to their children about right and wrong. And even today, many of these stories show up in books and television and movies. Let's take a trip back in time to the days of ancient Greece and look at some of the more famous constellations. Here we're looking at a typical winter sky in the northern hemisphere. As you look around, you can see many different stars. Some are brighter, some are colorful. The origins of modern constellations probably started with a scene just like this. It's kind of like connect the dots. Can you see anything that makes a picture in the stars in the sky on your screen? Here, we have the simple shapes created from the stars. Do any of these shapes remind you of anything? By simply connecting the dots, we get images that many of us may see different things in these images. And this is what happened in the past too. Different people and different cultures saw different things. Some of the images really stood out and they became more famous. The people of ancient Greece identified 43 different constellations, and using some creativity, they came up with pictures that look like this. As you probably guessed, the people of ancient Greece had some pretty active imaginations. While some of the constellations might actually look like the objects they're supposed to be, some of the constellations do not really look like the picture they're supposed to be. And a good example would be Aries the ram. Can you find the picture of a sheep? This is Aries the ram. You may have been looking at Taurus the bull. We want to look at Aries the ram right now. Here in the picture, we see a ram complete with horns and a fluffy tail. But let's take a look at what the stars in the sky that make up Aries actually look like. Can you still see a ram? Not really. The truth is, Aries has only 2 bright stars in it, so there's really no way that those 2 stars look like a sheep. But to the ancient Greeks, Aries was an important symbol, so they created Aries the ram around those 2 stars. There's quite a few constellations that do look a bit similar to the objects they're supposed to be. And they're fairly easy to spot once you get the hang of it. Now, we don't have time to go over all the constellations and myths, but there are a few really important ones. Let's see if we can spot Orion the Hunter. He's not far from Aries. And the trick is to look for the 3 stars in a row. They make up Orion's belt. Are you looking at these 3 stars? Orion is one of the easiest constellations to spot in the winter sky. Not only does he have a few stars that are standouts, but he actually looks a little bit like what he's supposed to be, a big guy in the sky. The first thing you'll notice about Orion is his belt. 3 stars in a row that make up a straight line across his midsection. Next, we have a bright red star on his shoulder. This star is Betelgeuse. Betelgeuse is a red supergiant, and while it sounds like the name of a movie ghost, Betelgeuse is actually an old Arabic word that means armpit. Can you guess why they called it that? Well, it's in the position of Orion's armpit. Now, if you move down to the corner of the constellation, diagonally opposite Betelgeuse, you come to Rigel, a blue star whose name means foot. Here they are labeled. Finally, if you look in Orion's right hand, you can see several stars in a row that make up his club. And in the left hand, there's a curved line of stars that make up his shield. Can you see them? If you really concentrate, you should be able to get a full picture of Orion. And here he is. His belt, Betelgeuse, his armpit, Rigel, the foot. Here we have the shield. The myth of Orion. According to ancient legend, there was once a man who was a poor farmer, and even though he was poor, he was kind to those around him and shared what little he had. One day, he helped 3 strangers who were actually Greek gods. They were traveling in disguise. In return for his kindness, he was granted 1 wish. He asked for a son, and Orion was born. As Orion grew up, he became a skillful hunter. However, the more famous he became, the more insensitive he became about killing animals, and instead of hunting just for food, Orion began killing animals for fun. This got Artemis, the goddess of hunting, very upset. To teach Orion a lesson, she sent down Scorpius, a giant scorpion from Mount Olympus. The scorpion stung Orion on his foot, and he became very ill and was about to die when Ophiuchus, the healer, gave Orion an antidote which saved his life. Orion was grateful to be saved, and he realized that he was wrong about killing the animals. He asked for forgiveness, and as a reward, he was placed into the stars in the sky. Just so he wouldn't forget the lesson he learned, the scorpion was also placed opposite him in the sky as a reminder of his bad deeds. Does anyone want to see the scorpion? Let's see if we can find him. First, we're going to change the sky a little bit because Scorpius is best seen in the summer sky. So if we look south, just above the horizon, we can see the constellation Scorpius. Like Orion, Scorpius is a constellation whose stars actually kind of make the image that's close to what it's supposed to be. To find the scorpion, look for another bright red star. This isn't Betelgeuse. It's another star in the heart of the scorpion, right here on our screen. Can you see the scorpion now? I'll give you a hint. He has a body shaped like the letter S with a long tail that looks like a fish hook, and at the tip there's a stinger. Here's his body. Here's that stinger. Here you see Scorpius in all his glory, and directly above him we have Ophiuchus, the guy with the snake, who gave Orion the antidote. Now, the constellation directly behind the scorpion in the east, the one who's half man and half horse, Sagittarius. According to legend, Sagittarius was put up in the sky to keep watch over the scorpion. If the scorpion gets out of line, Sagittarius will shoot him with his bow and arrow. Sagittarius is known as a centaur. Centaurs were mythological creatures who were supposedly they roamed the forests of the past. Can you think of any movies or books that contained centaurs in them? As a matter of fact, the Harry Potter series uses many characters from Greek mythology. We have Draco the dragon. A long time ago, there were a group of people called the Chaldeans who lived in the area of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, where modern-day Iraq is. These people believed that a monstrous dragon brought chaos and darkness and evil. At first, the dragon conquered all who came his way, and it seemed that evil would win. But finally, a brave god challenged the dragon, and using magical powers, beat him. Draco the dragon was placed in the sky as a reminder that with enough strength and perseverance, goodness will always conquer evil. Because this is such an important lesson, Draco is one of the few constellations that never appears to set in the northern hemisphere sky. Let's watch as I turn on the motion of the earth, which will make the stars appear to travel westward across the sky. You'll notice some constellations will disappear into the horizon. Some constellations will stay in the night sky all through the year. Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, Cassiopeia, all these are called circumpolar constellations because they revolve around the star Polaris, which is in the tail of Ursa Minor, Little Bear. Can you spot Little Bear? Here's Little Bear. Here is Polaris. And these constellations that are always in the night sky all throughout the year, that circle around Polaris, are called circumpolar constellations. Here we are at the end of our Greek mythology constellation lessons. Of course, you can always read more about Greek mythology on your own. It's important to remember that all cultures looked up into the night sky and made up stories about their constellations that they saw. There are myths from China, India, Africa, North and South America. The images that these people saw and the stories that they told were different than those of the stories from Greece. It's not that one group was right or wrong, they're just different stories based on different beliefs and their cultures. I hope you enjoyed our Greek constellation stories today.